Welcome to a little video tutorial on how to use variables in Java. We've started out just by creating some simple variables, and we've talked about these in class already. What we're going to do here is I'm going to put in a few comments so we know what's going on. We're using different variable types. The main two that we're going to use are called integers and doubles. With an integer variable, we have to use the word int, or the short form int. And we can still use double for the double variable. The thing with an integer type is it holds only whole numbers. And if you look in our textbook, you can find the range that it holds. A double variable type will allow us to use decimal places. So an integer, let's do this up here, only whole numbers. And this one, the double type, can use decimal places, or rather it allows decimals. Now you may wonder, why does it matter? Well, an integer type uses 4 bytes of information, or stores 4 bytes of information. A double type stores 8 bytes, or needs 8 bytes to hold it. So the more variables we have, the more memory that we'll use. Now you may not think that's a big deal, especially if your computer has 16 or 32 gigs of RAM, or 8 or 6. That's a lot of memory. And we're talking bytes here, we're not talking gigabytes or megabytes. When programmers used to program, we had limited resources. So we had to be very tidy or very neat with our code. So we would make sure that we chose the right type. I'm going to do a little program. And in this one, I'm going to declare and assign the value. So I've declared a variable. It's an integer type. The variable name, or the identifier, is called age, and I've assigned the value of 16 to it. Identifiers must start with a letter, and that letter, as a coding convention, must be lowercase. On this line, I am declaring the variable. I'm not assigning a value to it. In this identifier, we have two words. We have dog ears. Any additional word past our first word, the first letter of that word needs to be capitalized. It does not affect your program. It is simply a coding convention to help us as programmers understand what's going on. Dog ears equals age times 7. So we're doing some math and assign the value to the variable. Now remember, we talked about variables being like little cubbies in a kindergarten classroom, but we can only put one piece of information in there. If I do another calculation for dog ears, or I assign another value to 16, my previous value changes or actually disappears and is replaced by my newest value. Well, let's print out what we have. I'm just going to run my program for a moment, and down here it should print out my age. It says you are 16. What I'm doing here is a big word called concatenation. It means to join. I'm joining whatever I have in my quotation marks or my string value with my variable value or my age. I'm joining those two together. Now, if you were a dog, you would be dog ears. Let's run my program. Okay, so down here you are 16. If you were a dog, you would be 112. Again, I'm concatenating or joining those two values. So we have this value being joined to my variable called dog ears. I leave the space in here simply so I can have a space between B and the value of my variable. Let's do another little example using doubles. Double wage, double hours. Couple of things going on here. So we know that a double can hold decimals. We can declare two variables of the same type and context on the same line. We actually declare two or more variables of the same type or context on the same line. What I mean by context is that they have to be similar. So the two variables in this case are our wages and our hours. I couldn't declare my wage and how many fish I caught last week. They're just not related. They're not similar. Again, this is a coding convention. It is not necessarily going to affect your program. Well, let's assign some values to wage. Wage equals $11.25. So you're getting $11.25 an hour. Your hours, let's say that you worked 16.5 hours. And now we want to calculate our pay. So we're going to create another variable, double pay. And on this case, I can actually say double pay equals wage times hours. So I'm declaring and assigning a value to it. And the way I'm assigning a value is I'm actually doing a calculation here. Let's do a system.out just to show what our wage is. Your pay is, I'm going to put a dollar sign in here for now. We'll find out later on a better way of doing the dollar sign. And I'll add pay. Put a semicolon at the end. Now let's see what we get. Okay, so it says your pay is, let me get rid of that colon because we don't need it there. Let me run it again. Your pay is $185.62.5. One day soon we'll find out a way to get rid of that third decimal place. So this is a quick little intro on some of the variable types that we've used and a little bit about how variables can be used. I'll have another tutorial coming up that will allow you to look at some of the ways that we can do some simple math with some of the different variables that we have, and how math is a little bit different in Java than it is when we do traditional math, perhaps on a calculator or just by hand.